Well, you might have heard about the recent class action lawsuits towards real estate agents. $2 billion. dollars. The headlines are all over the place. It seems like pretty big news. But what does it mean for mortgage lending and the home buying process itself? Will it change anything in that respect? Today, we'll talk with Bill about that, see how his processes are changing and how it might affect you if you're looking for a new home. Welcome in. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube. I am Ben George. He's Bill Linton, the regional president of Cross Country Mortgage. And again, we appreciate you checking out the channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. But Bill, I want to talk to you about this class action lawsuit. I think if anybody pays attention to real estate news at all, and I don't even think you have to really pay much attention to real estate news because this made kind of national news wherever you live. But the $2 billion realtor lawsuit. I want to kind of get your little bit of background on this from you first of all, but being at Cross Country Mortgage, working in this industry, trying to get people into homes, what does this actually mean for the future? I know there's some pending litigation that's going to happen, I think, and there's appeals that are out there. So this probably won't be finalized for a little bit, but I'm kind of curious how this might affect things. So first of all, kind of take us into what actually happened and kind of the background on what we're talking about.
Well, I think the big issue that's been raised is that a seller of a house pays the buyer's agent's commission and that they somehow have done that unknowingly or didn't know they had a choice to do that or not. That's the crux of the issue. So I feel like we've got different interpretations of how this might go. In some states, it's very clear. It's in the contract. The seller signs and initials, and it's crystal clear that they're going to, and it's already in place, and the real estate markets in those states are functioning perfectly to where it's just clearly more transparently disclosed to them. There's one version of the outcome that says that the seller is, even if they wanted to, not allowed to pay the buyer's agent. That's the one I think that scares people the most. If they didn't have a choice in the matter, and then, well, how does the buyer's agent get paid? That becomes the probably more critical scenario.
Okay, so there's plenty of, we'll actually drop a link or two in the show notes too here, the description that you can read about the lawsuit if you haven't heard or just want to learn more about it, because the point of the video is not to get into what all that is and the back and forth and what could happen. But I'm more curious kind of what we know now and what some of the potential outcomes are. Will it affect the home buying process? If I'm looking to buy or sell a home, is it actually going to mean anything, right? Because we a lot of times we see these big headlines and big news, but once we kind of narrow it down and drill it down to how it affects an individual in Pennsylvania or Delaware, does it really have an impact?
So it's a great question because a lot of people are asking that question. How does this change the housing market? How does this change the buying process? We don't fully know for sure yet, but here's what we do know is we know that we have a really fantastic housing market in the U.S. A lot of us are wondering why we're messing around with it at all, truly. And I work alongside of buyers' agents, and their value in the transaction cannot be overstated. Their value is tremendous because they see things that I can't tell you how many times I've been working with a home, someone trying to buy a house. They walk into the house and they're like, I love it. Let's write an offer. And the buyer's agent's like, we are not writing an offer on this house. What do you mean? You didn't notice the train tracks in the backyard. You didn't notice the high tension wires. Their eye is keen on all of these things that the layman like us, we wouldn't see. So as long as the buyer still gets the appropriate representation that they're getting now, we feel like that's the main goal. And the value of the real estate agent, as long as it doesn't get lost in this battle, this legal battle, we're going to be okay. And we feel like there's a lot of rationale for keeping them a part of the transaction, largely in the way that they are. So we're hoping that overall our home buyers are still appropriately represented by the buyer's agent, and that buyer's agent is paid accordingly.
Well, a lot of the news stories that are out there, if you kind of glance through them, kind of read them quickly, you'll see that the commission fees might have been inflated. I think that's kind of the angle that's being put on it. Does that mean that potentially closing costs could come down, that you might not have to pay as much during the home buying process? Is that a possibility?
Well, if the seller is not allowed to pay the buyer's agent, and then the buyer has to pay the buyer's agent, then their closing costs would go up on the buy side and go down on the sale side.
Okay.
Now, if that happens, maybe the seller pays more transfer tax. Maybe the seller pays the title fees. I mean, what we do know is that the transfer and the purchase and sale of real estate in this country is very fluid. We don't want to change that. We still need to make it so that people can buy and sell houses. Might we change a few of the parameters? It looks like we're going down that road, but I can't see it happening in a way that would stifle the market.
So it might not have that much of an impact. When you look at the amount that's being paid, it just might be line item 1 and 2 is shifting to 3 and 4. And so when you're actually the one that's buying the house or selling the house, you don't really see it as much or feel it as much. It's more in the details and everybody that's working on the paperwork. And of course, from Cross Country's angle as well, building out the mortgage and putting that in place for everyone. So maybe not as big of an impact, I guess, for individuals.
Overall, we feel like that we're going to have to find a way to transact fluidly. That's got to stay, front and center, because our housing market, that's our largest industry in our economy in the U.S. So we've,
right.
A lot of people, some people don't like paying 5 or 6% commissions. And what they don't realize is it's like if you sold your house for $100,000 and you paid 6%, you walk away with $94,000. If there were no real estate agents, the values would be much more depressed, because people wouldn't know how to navigate. You can do your own taxes. You can represent yourself in a court of law. What's the saying? He who represents himself has a fool for an attorney, right? You can definitely buy and sell your house right now without a realtor. But if the market at large did that, I'd rather sell my house for $100,000, pay the 6% commission, and walk away with $94,000, rather than, because the market's depressed, I sold my house for $80,000. I didn't pay any commissions, but I really didn't win anything, because my values are depressed, because the market's not chugging along the way that it does currently, to see the increases year over year the way that they've been.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation and big news, I know, across the real estate industry as a whole. And it's a place where no matter where you turned, you heard or read about those headlines over October and in November, and I'm sure in the months ahead as well. But we'll try to keep you updated if anything changes, if there's any news, any impact on the mortgage lending process, or what it means for you for buying and selling your home. All right, please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet. And of course, if you want to get in touch with Bill Litton over at Cross Country Mortgage, you can do so at 484-352-4151 or online at smartmortgageshow.com. This program is for informational purposes only. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action. Bill Litton is a loan advisor and regional president with Cross Country Mortgage, NMLS number 147060.